In this video I'm going to talk about punches. It's just basics. I'm not going to get into any advanced techniques, but it seems like there are a lot of people that are trying to learn the technique or struggling with it. So I'm just going to go over some of the basics of punching, but using little punches, not notched punches, but you can use just about anything for a punch, antler wise anyway, or bone. This is I think a moose tip. Here's one that I cut, deer antler tine. It's kind of a wedge shape. You use it for notching. You can even use this. This is a leftover Ishii pressure flaker, and I don't throw the discards away if I think I can use it for something. It's also deer antler. It's a really good bone. And one of the ways that I've noticed that I can tell is you can kind of look at the bone, the business end that you're going to be using, and hopefully it's not washed out too much with light, but it looks really white and not pithy, not gray. I noticed some of the grays seem to be a lot softer, but it looks like it's got a little bit of a shine to it on the inside. That means it's hard. This is a piece of walrus ivory. This is the business end, and I just make contacts in the middle or all different places on there. When you're notching with Abo tools, bone, you need to throw away everything you've ever learned about copper. Antler only works because it grabs an edge, not a plane. You don't put it up on a plane and expect it to work like a copper bopper does or like a copper pressure flaker does. Antler doesn't work that way, so you just have to throw it out and start with something completely different. I'll get more into that. That's pretty much it for my notchers. Punch notching anyway. I have this biface. It's an old Clovis preform that I had that I broke or something. I don't know. I found it, but I just started notching away on it. And one thing you have to realize when you're doing Abo notching is that they didn't make them little super fine narrow notches like a lot of the modern nappers are doing. Look at some of the old work and you'll see what I'm talking about. In certain cases there were probably some that were fairly narrow, and I'll even get into how, hopefully I can get into that later on in this video too. First I'm going to start off with a bigger tool that I used to put this notch in with, which would be great for stemmed styles or Snyders even maybe, or something with the wide notch, the Benton, or I don't really know, because it's fairly wide right here, so you obviously can't get any narrower than that if you go this deep. So I'll just get started on that, and I just you can use a piece of wood, or this is just one of my antler billets, but you can use anything to do this with. Hopefully I can get a good angle, and I'm going to try to zoom in, and this is going to be more of, hopefully anyway, more of a how-to instead of just a do type of video. So, I'll just probably keep going into, well, maybe I'll start brand new. Let's see here. I want to start like right here. This is pretty low, and it's like I was saying, it's got more of a plane on this upper side, but as long as it's not too steep and there's a little bit of an edge I can grab a hold of, then I'll do that. But hopefully you can see this. When you use an antler, you need a thin edge, but you don't want too thin of an edge, because if it's too thin it'll just crush it, and if it's too thick it obviously won't come off if there's not an edge for it to grab a hold of. And this was just a little tiny flake just to get me started, but I just want to show the plane of it hopefully. Maybe with some shadows and contours you can see that it's kind of, that's about the maximum angle I'd want to use for a plane. So I just barely caught the edge basically. Now, in order to take a flake back on the other side, which I'm going to do right inside of there, I'm going to clean out either side of this and make sure I have the contours right so that the antler grabs it the right way on the other side. So I'm just pushing down on both sides, and you can probably see now that that's a little better than it was contour wise. Maybe, come on. Alright, now I'm going to lightly brush the sides. I'm going to take the flake underneath, but I'm going to, it's a little thin. Whenever you use antler, you want to push away material until it doesn't push away. Did you see those little flakes flying off there? What I'm doing is I'm pushing the material away so that the antler bites and doesn't take off any more flakes. So I'm taking off, basically the edge is too thin and I'm making it just slightly thicker. Okay, now get it to focus. You'll see that that's what I'm gonna hit right there. Come on now. Oh, one right here. Okay, yeah, you can see that it's fairly sharp. There's the underneath side. I'm not going to take a big flake yet. I'll show some more as I go along. But this has got a curve to it, and I used to think, well, you had to use the inside of this curve to get the angle just right. I've chipped quite a bit of it off, and I don't see any reason in wasting the bone. I don't think they would have done that. Well, I know there's a good portion over here on the other side of the pith that's in the middle, so it's arced the other way, but it still works just fine. Okay, now I'm gonna scrunch it right in there where I want and make sure it's biting like I was talking about earlier. What I mean by biting, again, is that it's not taking flakes off. You know, if you push hard enough, it'll take flakes off. But you don't want to obliterate your platform. You just want to be able to catch it. So now I'm going to turn it this way. And I don't necessarily catch it right on the edge. I can do it up here if the antler was good, but I'm going to put it right about there because I want it to clear a little bit. And just give it a tap. And that hinged, obviously. Probably not paying close attention. So I'm cleaning around the sides again. And the thing with antler is you don't want to turn your edge too much or you'll end up hitting off of a plane instead of a sharp edge. So I'm going to try it again. I got to get a little bit of something here, so get something going. Let me get it going. So there I am. I took the flake. I'm cleaning out. Move that out of the way. Cleaning out both sides, but not too much. If I clean it out too much, I won't have a sharp edge left. I'll only have a plane. What I mean by that is, let's see. I'll show you with this. There's quite an obvious plane right here. If I put this punch directly on that and hit that like that, that will never come off. Ever. If it does, it's just going to make the most ugliest flake you've ever seen. It won't be the flake you want, that's for sure. Now, every once in a while you have to do that, but you know, maybe to take a spacing flake or to zigzag the edge, you might have to do that. You know, I can do it a little bit to some degree, but you know, see, you're not trying to take a big long thinning flake or anything like that, or something that you have really good control with. So, alright. Now, maybe, okay, I got this kind of prepped, and hopefully it'll undercut this hinge. It may not. It might just get worse. But we'll give it a try. So I'm scrunching with my antler bone with the tip to make sure it's got enough bite. And then I'm gonna, wonder if I can zoom in on this. Okay, maybe this will work. I gotta give it a pretty good wallop here, I think, to get under that hinge. There. And here's the result. It's not great because I kind of crushed my edge in there a little bit. Go in there some more, clean out on both sides. I've got quite maybe you can see that this is quite steep on this side, and my edge is really too low. One thing I've noticed with antler is you really don't want to lower your edge too much. You want it pretty close to the center line, that imaginary center line. So this is not obviously going to be a good flake at all anymore, but I'm going to go to the side and then that side to try to get around it and raise my edge up enough where I can do something with it. Oops. That was a big flake. My thing slipped. That's okay. Now, I think I can do something with that. Try it again right here. There. It's still trying to stay really low, so I have to be really careful. Gotta go to the side again right here. Alright. That'll work for that. See, if your edge is too thin, it'll just crush. And when you crush, you're pretty much stalled out at that point. Now I'm going to use this leftover pressure flaker. It's just got a blunt end. I'm not trying to make any narrow notches. I'm just making big notches. But I'll try it right here. If you can tell by the, I'm going to take a flake underneath right here. But maybe hopefully with the light and shadows you can see kind of a dimple in there. You definitely wouldn't want to take a flake on this side, right into that dimple. It will just turn out ugly. So I'm going to clean, let's see, and And right in the very bottom, in that narrowest portion, that deepest portion, it just slightly turns up a little bit. And I don't want that. So in order to get rid of that, I'm going to scrunch backwards just a little. Not a whole lot. I'm doing the sides too. It's going to take some practice, of course. But I would suggest just getting the flakes, and I wouldn't necessarily just pick up thin flakes because you're going to end up breaking them. But pick you up something, anything, it doesn't matter if it's a thick biface or a thin biface. You ought to be able to, I mean, they notched hose, and those were really thick, so it doesn't have to be thin to be done with antler, contrary to what some people say. Alright, this is just going to be, I'm going to go to the side, probably go to the side and both sides here. See, nice little flake. Do a little tiny one here on the other side. Maybe. One thing to remember is if you are hitting it and the flake doesn't come off, this rule applies to all types of flint knapping, any type of flint knapping. If the flake doesn't want to come off, then you're doing something wrong. And if you keep going, then you're forcing it. And whenever you force it, it doesn't, you know, you get bad results. You don't get the result you wanted unless you just get lucky. There. Okay. Now I'm scrunching a little bit inside there, prepping. Now normally if I was doing most styles aren't going to use this type of punch. I'll get to that one in a minute. Like if you're doing a harden or something, you could start out with this one, but you wouldn't obviously want to finish with it. Also, I recommend not to use like an ulna bone for most notching, because there's just not enough strength there. If you plan on going in really shallow, or you got something super thin like a Cahokia, then you could probably get away with it. I'm going to go to the sides on this one because I don't like the contours very well, and then I'll go to the middle. Okay. That's kind of like an isolation move. Alright, there. Clean out on the sides. And I remember whenever I first transitioned to Abo tools, I was, whoops, I just threw my pressure flicker. When I first transitioned to Abo tools, I was really amazed at how much material the antler removed whenever, like just this little scrunching stuff, because with the copper flaker I could take off just the tiniest little amount. Anyway, what I'm getting at is it's just not the same. So it's almost intimidating, I want to say, because I was like, wow, I took a bigger flake off than I wanted to using the antler. That's because of the grabbing properties of it. Now I'll switch to this is, I'm not going to use this one. Well, I might in a minute, but there's no need. I got another narrow one. This is I think this is from a warthog tusk. It's really hard, and you can see where I've damaged the tip learning to notch with it. Just learning to notch with Abo tools in general, because it doesn't give like antler. It's really hard and it chips kind of conchoidally, like chert. But I'll probably use this piece of walrus here. And I saved a flake from earlier, but yeah, you can see this has that's that C cone or whatever. I don't know if that's what you call a C cone, but that's a really good characteristic notch flake for a punch. You can see I didn't grab much material. I angled this one kind of into the rock a little bit. But we'll do some here. I guess I'll just keep going right along where I just took that flake. I took that from right here on this side. So I'll clean out both sides, which is a routine that you don't have to do every time, but you just need to remember it in case you do need to do it. But I don't always do it. Sometimes I clean it out afterwards, especially when I'm really trying to knock them in there far. It's like I don't have time to worry about all that. Like I'll show you real quick. So I'm not going to clean out the sides. I'll just scrunch a little bit. And you see I'm not grabbing the edge. Look how high up. I'm like in the middle or almost in the middle. I'm not trying to drive it all the way through. I'm just trying to knock it in there about 1/8 of an inch or less. And now I'm not going to clean out the sides again, but I am going to clean out the middle a little bit, scrunch a little. Do the same thing. This is how you get those narrow notches. You just have to make sure you have enough clearance on the sides. And now I'm getting so wide that my bone is hitting on either side, but I'm still going to go for it anyway. It might be a little too much, but yeah, that's definitely not going to work now. I have to clean it out just a hair. Okay. It still might break. It's just demonstration purposes anyhow. Yeah. Clean out the sides a little bit. As you get deeper, you just, unless this is this thick all the way up, or all the way up to where you're, how deep you're going to notch anyway, then you pretty much have to clean out the sides. Now I'm getting to a point where I can't really go anymore because of the contours of this point. Yeah, I'm not going to hit that again because it looks like it would break the tip right off. So I'm not going to mess with that. So I'll do another one with this walrus. And I was looking for my bone one. I've got actually I have two. I don't know where they're at, but that are made out of antler that work just as good. It's just the preparation is a little bit different than this is. Just because I want to mention too that just because it's harder doesn't mean that it's a better tool. Some people, I've heard people think, and I used to think this myself, about like a beaver tooth or a moose tooth or a tooth, something that's hard, the enamel on it that's really hard, or a black locust thorn or something like that, or something that's a needle tip. That's not what you want with antler or bone or ivory. You want something that's gonna grab, and something that's really, really, really sharp isn't like that. So I'll do another one. I'll just go in like right here where this one was where I stopped here before. I'm scrunching. See all those little flakes? You want to be able to scrunch all that and not have those little flakes come off. That means you got enough there to grab. And now I'll try to, maybe I can get a little closer. Not sure which is the best angle here. Maybe like this. Right there. Okay. And I want to keep it kind of round. So whenever I see that it's starting to get more rounded on one side or the other side, then I'll switch to that side, and I can see a slight little hump developing on this side just across the middle. So I'm going to use that part right on the notch that I want to take. So I want to get the most life out of this as possible. I don't use shoulders very often. Didn't hit too hard, but it went in there quite a ways. Now, this one deserves a clean out. And don't scrunch too much. Hopefully I didn't. If you do happen to scrunch too much, like I may have slightly done on this one, I don't know if you can see in there, it's awful white, but it's there's a little tiny plane right at the bottom, so you can scrunch that and raise that edge back up. Kind of like that. Hopefully you can see that. And put it on there. Give it a, yeah, it's a little steep. There. Yeah, see. I mean, this is obviously just for demonstration purposes, but it reminds me to mention to not push down too hard. This wasn't caused by me pushing down too hard on it. As it came off cleanly, it tried to wrap all the way around this thing, and which is really hard. That's how you lose ears. Clean that out on both sides. Remembering not to scrunch too much. And sometimes you can take 2 flakes off of one side if everything's right. Or sometimes you get your platform too low and you take a flake and it's still too low in this direction to take a flake from this side, so you prep it again and take another flake from the same side. This is a really funny in here. See how, man, I hope you can see that. See that funny little dilly whopper down there in the bottom? You don't really want that, because it'll give you a problem. But I think I can get around it right here. I'm just going to move over to that side a little bit, and because of the contours, I'm not driving a flake way in there. I'm just kind of driving one straight down. There. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright. And also, I've noticed a lot of points, not all styles, but a lot of them, I think they go in there and they just scrunch on both sides like that and get it really dull. It looks like they stalled out, but they didn't. They're just doing it, I guess, to keep from cutting the hafting or whatever, and I've seen it, you know, a lot duller than that inside even. So, alright, I guess that's it for notching. Well, maybe, hang on just a second. It's going to show how to use the on the bone. Let me zoom out a little. This is a fresh on the bone, pretty fresh on the bone that I got recently. Here's some older ones that I've worn out. Not completely worn out, they're just really short, and they have their uses. Actually, there's still lots of good life in all three of these. Just to show this new one, because I had a lot of trouble when I first started using these. I kept breaking them. So let's see, I'm just gonna do this kind of like a bevel resharpen. I'll just do something like from here to here. Zoom back in a little. Now I flip it over. I don't always just use one side. I flip it over and use the other side too, but I have found that this point right here, this is great if I use it flipped over on this side. But if I flip it over on this side and try to use it where that tip is, because it's beyond the center, it has a tendency to flake a big chunk off of the top. But if it's below the center, then I don't break those big chunks off the top near as much. So they take more dressing. So, you know, you don't want to be wasteful with these, obviously. But same thing, it's just a scrunch. You scrunch until it bites, and then take a little flake. And I'm just scrunching, taking a flake and moving over. Scrunching, take a flake, move over. I'll square this off a little. And I'm getting some follow through. You can hear it take the flake once, and then it catches right there and takes a flake again. Typically you don't want that. So I take it and rub it on sandstone or concrete or something to make sure it's out of the way. Okay. Maybe I should turn it like this. And even like this. See, I'm catching that sharp edge and pushing through. And you probably see how it's getting that nice little bevel on there. I'll do some more. Alright, the detail shot. See this, hang on. Trying to get a good angle on this. Yeah. See this little serrated point sticking out here? It's too sharp. Because when I just barely put pressure on it, see those little flakes it's taken away? So I scrunch it in. Now it's pretty much gone. And it's thick enough ready to grab. And then take the flake. And then here's another point sticking out. Scrunch it in and take the flake. That sound is what you want to hear, where it just makes that one sound going through, not two sounds. Should be able to see a nice bevel across that. And that's really sharp right there too. A lot of hardens. They're finished similar to that. Thebes, all kinds of points were, appears to me like they were resharpened with something like an ulna bone. Okay, that's it.